50 through to 41, we've finally broken into the top 50 of the top 100 games. The past 50 are awful compared to these. Let's start off with this group of 10 brilliant board games. Let's jump into it. Number 50 is a fantastic game which is just given the plastic CMON treatment, and that's Blood Rage. It's got this fantastic drafting game that drives your abilities, what your clan can do, but also gives you access to these very tasty looking miniatures. This massive troll that's plonking down, and when it does, maybe it just outright kills one of the opponent's dudes in that area, and you're trying to control these different areas as this area, these different zones slowly explode sort of effectively as, and all of your stuff sent off to like Valhalla. It's got this awesome theming with these the different clans, and what makes it is those minis that have special powers, the drafting that makes each player different. All of a sudden, well, actually, if you have your dudes in that area at the end of the round, it's going to, you know, like I say, explode, and you're losing all of those people that could have been doing area control, but your clan, you've drafted some cards which mean you get victory points when that happens. What? Yes, different things like that, and so you can make these really cool powers and draft and just have a very unique, cool faction by the end of it. There are some things, like there's a low-key strategy which is overpowered a little bit, but once you've played a couple of games, certainly with the same people, you know what cards are good. It's one of those games where the first time you play, someone can win by so many points. And then you're like, oh yeah, we should probably not let them get that combination of cards again. Or if someone does get that combination of cards, the other players around the table need to go pretty hard against that one player. And it's pretty cool the way that games do feel a little different. And the plastic minis and all that that makes the presentation look fantastic. It's not a new game by any stretch of the imagination, but Blood Rage is one that I'd still recommend for people to play. Maybe it's harder to pick up though, but that is Blood Rage. Number 49, another older game on the list, is Lords of Waterdeep, and this one's actually moved up 17 spaces from last year. Actually, a lot of these ones have moved up from previous times. Lords of Waterdeep getting quite a jump, and I think it's because it's hit the table again more recently. It's one of my favourite worker placement games, and it's also relatively easy to get to the table with new players. You can just knock out like the expansion content and just play the base game. And yes, I know a lot of people would say I'm not playing it without those skulls that you know, you can take, and they might be massive minus points or just a little minus points and stuff like that. And I do agree. I think the expansion makes Lords of Waterdeep better. However, it's easy to get to the table as just a normal game, and it's still got one of my favourite things that basically no worker placement game has done in the same way, and that's there are buildings. So at the end of the game, there will be all of these buildings built, and that's so many different worker placement spots that weren't there at the beginning of the game. And they're different from one game to the next, and I think that's a really cool thing. Like, you can be like, right, you put your dude here, you get some purple cubes. You put it there, you get some orange cubes. And you need your purple and orange cubes for that quest you're doing. Nice and simple. Oh, but then there's these action cards that maybe disrupt opponents. Oh, there's these buildings that you can build, and if someone else uses one of your buildings, you get a little benefit. And it's now a new worker placement spot. I just think it's a fantastic game, and it's one that I kind of wish that the metal coins were still available for. Every time I go to play the game, I wish I had those coins as metal, because it would just be a bit nicer. But Lords of Waterdeep, what a fantastic worker placement game. If you've never played a worker placement game, it's a brilliant starting point. And if you like the D&D theme, it's there. It doesn't necessarily add much, but it is there as well. But Lords of Waterdeep, cracking game. After I just said Lords of Waterdeep had made a massive jump up, Red Rising has fallen down 16 places from last time. Now, In part, it's just not got to the table much recently, and I think that has made it fall down, but it's still, I think, a great game. I think that's maybe an unusual thing, maybe slightly unpopular thing, but I really like it. It's sort of, in part because I love the books that it's based upon, so when the characters come out, it does mean a little bit more to me than it would anyone else. But it also takes other games that are a lot quicker, and I think it does it better. So there's other games like Marvel Remix, and I think it's Fantasy Realms that's based on, and you're effectively trying to get this great hand of cards by the end of the game. That's exactly what you're trying to do in Red Rising, but it's just a bit of a deeper experience, which is therefore slower. I think maybe that puts some people off. They like it quick, but they don't like the slower paced version of Red Rising. Now, I'd also say this is a fantastic game for like 2 to 3 people. I would never, ever, ever, ever again play this at like, I think the full player count is 5. I'd never do that again. It's tediously slow at that player count. But you play it with 2 players, you play it with 3, and it's fantastic the way you're adding cards to different columns, which gives you a triggered action, and then you're taking from somewhere else, you're trying to build up maybe this hand of reds or golds, or you're trying to get maybe some pinks to score off each other, and this character doesn't want to be in the same end hand as this character, or it will lose a load of points. You know, some of these cards have massive point values and then things get knocked off. Other ones, it's not worth much at all unless it's paired with this other one, or these, you know, at least 2 other golds, that sort of thing. And it kind of, for me, because I love the trilogy of the books, I've not read the second trilogy yet, because I really loved that trilogy of books, and the way the main character sort of assembles a team almost around him, it feels like that in a board game. And I really like Red Rising. It's a simple card play of, normally on your turn you're like putting something down, picking something up from a different place and triggering an action. And I just really like it. That's Red Rising. At number 47 is a brand new-ish game to the list. Yes, a few of these new ones to the list are like this. And this is Clank. Why is this one new when actually it would have been on my top 100 list 5 years ago? Well, it's because last time I put in Clank Legacy. Out of the experiences, Clank Legacy is the ultimate one, and it was higher in my top 100 last time than this version of Clank. But you can't really replay that. You can go endlessly and keep on playing, but you've played the experience, it's done. Whereas Clank, you can just always get to the table. And it's one of these brilliant ones, which is, in my opinion, the best way of doing deck building, and that's it not being the main thing. You're doing deck building to do something, and I think that's what Clank does perfectly. You're getting these cards so you have maybe more movement, so you can run around this dungeon and get to the lower levels, getting the better loot. You've got swords on some of your cards that are allowing you to go on maybe routes which have loads of monsters that otherwise would harm you. Some maybe that reduce your Clank or give you Clank, which is bad in this game normally. You clank around a lot, but you get this really cool thing. And do you risk adding that to your deck? Because at times you're pulling these Clank cubes out of this bag, and well, that's not normally good for you. So you don't want to put too many of your cubes in there, because you want to get in, get out. Certainly don't be around while the dragon, the monster, is awake and just dishing damage out. A really cool game, and it does deck building. In my opinion, deck building on its own is good, but when it's in something like this, driving movement around a board game, that sort of thing, that's where it really flourishes. So really enjoy Clank. But if you're going to go and just play one thing, the Clank Legacy experience is, wow, so good. Falling quite away, but still in the top 100, still a fantastic game, is Sagada. Now this looks really nice on the table for what is a game that probably doesn't deserve to be. It's a sort of dice placement-y sort of game, and you're adding them to your player board. But it's the look, it's the Sagrada Familia vibe, the stained glass, colourful dice that you're placing that turn what could be a very dull-looking dice placement game into a really colourful one that has a really cool choice in each and every of your turns, because it's got this great, I like to call it an ABBA system of play. Like, it goes player A, player B, player B, player A. So if you're going first, for instance, you're getting the first choice, but the last choice of that round. If you're the second player out of two, you're getting the second choice, but also the third. So you're then leaving, what you're leaving is, probably the worst. And at times, yeah, it goes above two, but that's just the best way to explain it. You're choosing these dice. Sometimes it's great to be first because you're like, there's one dice, and if I get that, it will score me loads from the objectives that we've got to activate. But sometimes it's like, yeah, I went first and got that really good dice, and now I'm left with some stuff I can't really use. There's some cool ways to get around it. There's some powers. I wish you could activate those powers more because I think they're cool. There's expansions which add like multicoloured dice and arrows dice. They point towards things that score more points and change things up, keep it fresh. But even just playing Sagrada, it looks nice on the table. It's a cool sort of dice spatial puzzle that you're trying to fill out, trying to score these objectives better than anyone else. Yeah, it's a lot of good fun. That's Sagrada. Tsuro is a fantastic tile placement game that you can get to the table with anyone, and it goes really nicely up to a big player count as well. I think, personally, I've played it most when it's like 3, maybe 4, 5 players, but I think you can go all the way up to like 8 with this. There's certainly enough of the stones for the player pieces included in the box. And what you're doing on your turn is very simple. You're placing a tile in front of your stone, and it's going to move down the path that you create for it in front of you via the tile. But sometimes when you place a tile, it connects into a previously placed one, and your stone moves from one part of the board all the way to the other, doing wiggles and everything. And you're just trying to make sure that your stone doesn't leave play. It doesn't go off the edge of the board. And there's also times where you can be very cheeky and tactical and place a tile and not only move your stone, but someone else's, maybe even forcing them off the board. It's just a really simple game to play. You've got 3 tiles in your hand, and place one of them in front of you and move along it. Then move other people if they were now not on the edge of a tile because of the one you've just placed. Really cool. It's just very simple, nice tile placement. It looks pretty cool. What more do you kind of want? And another tile placement game for the list is Akropolis. This one has moved up quite a lot simply because I've played it more in the last sort of year and a half since when I made the list last time. Akropolis is a tile placement game where you're building up as well as out. I always say that when I talk about Akropolis because it kind of is exactly what is fun about it. When it comes to actually scoring things, not only are you counting like the ones that correctly do stuff, so the military red tiles you want near the edge, you're also counting based on how high up they are. So if you can build up, they do score you more points. And that can be very, very impactful when you get like these green gardens, which are quite rare, but have normally a good multiplier to them up high, and you can score massively. Or do you just sprawl out with massive blue residential areas? Now, I have actually, and I think it probably helped bump this one up, I have played the Athena expansion. I played it at UK Games Expo a couple of times, and that's a really cool expansion. I'm very much going to look forward to getting that into the collection at some point, but another tile placement game that you should definitely check out. Santorini is a game that I don't currently have in the collection. So why is it so high? Well, it's because it's actually about to, or soon-ish, and then hopefully in the next few months, going to be re-entering the collection. Basically, I let go of my older version of Santorini, as I did back a while ago, the Kickstarter basically for a nicer, cleaner version with more of the god powers and everything. Santorini, if you don't know, it's a chess-like feely game where you're often just moving one of your two workers and building up these levels, and you're trying to jump up the levels and effectively get to like the third level, at least normally. When you throw in the god powers, each player maybe has something different that they can do, place 2 things down on a turn instead of 1, or maybe they have a brand new way of winning, and different things like that just shake the gameplay up. It looks really cool with this Santorini. If you've seen the game of Santorini and seen what the island of Santorini looked like, you're like, yeah, that's pretty fitting. It really has the white walled buildings with the dark blue domes on them. It looks really cool on the table, and I like those sort of 2-player, yeah, I think you can play it 3, but 2-player, quick, kind of chess-likey sort of games. And Santorini is an absolute banger of those. So if you're looking for a 2-player game, again, you can go to 3, but if you're looking for a 2-player game that's chess-ish, but not chess, Santorini is one to check out. Splendor is a very unique thing on my list, and that's because not only has it actually beaten Splendor Duel, it's one of the games that hasn't moved position from last time. It's exactly where Splendor was last time. And I think the reason, I briefly mentioned it when I spoke about Splendor Duel, but this engine building game with cards and gemstones, I think is still higher than Duel because it has that flexibility of you can play it with 2 and it's still a good experience, though if you're at 2, Duel is better, but you can then play this with 3 or 4 players. And I think that means it gets to the table a bit more because this is an entry-level style engine builder. You have got this great part, as with any engine builder, of when do I stop making my engine of cards in front of me better, and when do I go for points? Because you're on a turn either paying for like one of these cards or collecting some gemstones from the middle. These gemstones, they're these nice chunky poker chips, which it doesn't hurt the game at all, but you then use them to buy cards. The cards in turn, some gives you, a lot of them give you points, but some of the cheap ones don't give you any points. So why would you buy them? Well, maybe it gives you a blue stone. For the rest of the game, that card is in front of you and makes, when you're buying future cards, it 1 cheaper of blue. So you can build this engine up of, like, say, I've got these 3 cards that give me blues and 2 here that give me whites. I could just get a card for free from the market if its sort of requirements are 3 blue and 2 white, and just add it to my collection. 3 points. I don't have to worry about claiming some gems from that middle that maybe my opponents have claimed and all that sort of stuff. So it's got that great engine building, and I think most people have played Splendor by now. If you've not, it's one of those games that I think you can get to the table super easily, and it's pretty nice production quality for an entry-level game, which is exactly what you want. Capture people with nice components and cool, easy gameplay, and a game that you can just go back to over and over again. That's Splendor. And the last one on the list is a little bit bigger than the last, and this is Zombicide Black Plague. And this is now the only other edition of Zombicide that I've got in the collection other than Marvel Zombies. And that's not on the list, just simply it's not been played enough. But Zombicide Black Plague is, in my opinion, the exact version I want to play of a medieval or just non-Marvel themed Zombicide. The modern one was cool. I played the original edition, so it had the rules, quirks. Black Plague was then the next big one that I played. I bought Green Horde, I kickstarted it, and eventually I sold that off. I think the Green Horde one tried to add too much that I don't get the game to the table regularly enough for needing super variety. Black Plague is just the right amount. What are you trying to do in this? You are heroes going around killing wave upon waves of zombies, maybe trying to save some survivors, maybe just trying to get through this map or find and locate certain items, because you go through this like campaign book. So maybe in this map you're trying to find the wildfire casks. On maybe on the next one you can take down the abomination zombie that's massive that basically you need to run away from. It fixes a number of the rules of the original modern one. I've not played 2nd edition, which I believe just basically copies the Black Plague rule set for modern times, which was like when you shoot into a space with an ally, well, you just automatically hit them. In Black Plague, they fixed that. You still might hit them, but you still have a chance to not hit them. And I like that. You roll the dice. It's so many dice being chucked in this. You chuck dice, you kill loads of plastic zombies, you level up, more plastic zombies come at you, bigger, faster, fatter zombies come at you with more health, more speed, whatever, and it's a lot of fun. It takes time to play. Don't sit down and try and play this with less than like 2 hours with setup and play, and things can go bad. But what a game, and that's Zombicide. In particular, Black Plague. So that wraps up another batch of 10. They're starting to go through the top 50 now. What of these 10 was your favourite? What one was like, wow, that's an unusual inclusion? Let me know in the comment section below. And until next time, next time in 3 days' time, I'll be releasing the next part of the top 100, so stay subscribed for that. But until then, have a fantastic day gaming.